All righty, got 1 minute. Actually,
Hey, how you
waiting
doing?
I'm waiting on Tony.
I saw him out there.
Go ahead and we're gonna bring our meeting to order. Thank you so much. It's 6 o'clock straight up, and so at this time, I'll ask the city clerk, would you call the roll of the city council?
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Linda J. Davis.
Present.
Honorable James Whitmore.
Present.
Honorable Pat Palin.
Present.
The Honorable Hattie Portis Jones.
Present.
The Honorable Alex Heath.
Present.
The Honorable Ulysses J. Smallwood.
Present.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll go to our first agenda item, Mr. City Manager.
First item is the pilot Public Safety Housing Allowance Program.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Police Department and the Fire Department are working jointly on this proposal. We are proposing a public safety housing allowance program for Fairburn first responders. This will be sworn officers and certified firefighters. We want to do this because we believe there's an incentive for officers to live in the city. There's more visibility with marked police cars parked in our neighborhoods and going through our streets on their way home. It's going to build stronger community relationships. I can speak to that myself as a former Fairburn resident. In addition, it's going to be a faster response time for emergency call-outs when we have officers who need to be called in from home in an emergency. They're much faster when they're in the city. This may seem familiar because recently the Atlanta City Council proposed a similar program. They're using $500,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds to also pay for housing incentives, so we're following in some big footsteps there. Currently, the police department has 7 eligible officers who would qualify for this in the city bonus. The fire department has 3 firefighters. We'd like to budget for 9 police officers to receive this benefit to get us through the rest of the fiscal year until September. The fire department currently has 3 firefighters who would be eligible for the program. They are budgeting for 5, 2 above to plan for growth of the program if we can incentivize some officers to move into the city. The total budget for the police department, we're asking to move the money, is $12,600, $7,000 for the fire department. We are again budgeting March through September, which is 7 months to complete FY23. Both the police department and fire department are transferring funds from existing budget lines to a new housing allowance line that we've been working with finance to create. Finally, there is going to be an application process to participate in the program with residency requirements verified. We do not accept a P.O. box, and it must be your primary residence. It cannot be a home you own in Fairburn that you're renting to someone else. We want you living in Fairburn. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Before you go to Chief, Fire Chief, do you have anything you want to add to that, or did he cover it all?
Yes, he covered it. Excuse the lateness, we had an emergency, but I'm here tonight. But everything Chief talked about is pretty much the way we're gonna lay ours out too.
Okay.
And like you said, police was asking for a larger sum, but I think this will work good for us. I like the whole idea, and for the first time, Chief been able to come and work together on some stuff. you know, to help our departments and help with retention with the city, because of the growth that we have.
Okay.
I'd like to add, again, to Chief's point, you're going to see more of a public safety front moving forward. It's not going to be PD and fire. It's going to be public safety. That's how we'd like to operate.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Okay, Ms. Chris, you have something you need to add?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And just so you know, I've been working closely with them on rolling out this, pilot program. Recently in the news, I know the city of Atlanta donated about $500,000 to the Atlanta Police Foundation for public safety housing allowance. So this pilot program is on trend with what other municipalities is doing to try to help retain our public safety personnel.
Members of council, is there any questions you have about this item? I'll start with Mr. Whitmore, then come to Mr. Heath, and then come to Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is probably more directed towards city administrator, assistant administrator. And my question would be, American Rescue Funds, has that been exhausted? And if not, can it be applied to this?
So unfortunately, well, good thing it has not been exhausted. I know previously we brought before Mayor and Council a plan in reference to how we would allocate those funds. The funds for this pilot program come directly from the FY23 budget of both the police and fire department. Again, we do want this to be a pilot program. Our goal is that with its success, we come before Mayor and Council with the FY24 budget and ask for additional funding to potentially allow more officers or firefighter personnel or even other city employees to participate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Heath?
Yes, Chief, my question to you is, and I've talked it over with the city manager, but wanted to hear from you. Do we have any officers that are doing security and getting rent-free in apartments in Fairburn?
So the housing courtesy officer programs, I do believe we have some officers participate in that, but it has changed. My understanding is whereas they used to get either a free apartment or dramatically discounted one, count with some of these.
Okay. You think we?
Figure for you, but I can't.
Okay, that'd be great.
Clarity, those courtesy officer positions are not exclusive to Fairburn Police.
That's correct. We have other apartment complexes. They can hire a sworn officer, sheriff officer from any other. Not required to have Fairburn officers as courtesy officers.
Got it.
Okay. Excuse me. Is length of time of program.
Pilot program of the fiscal year 2023 to September 2023.
I'm looking under the program guidelines. The last paragraph talks about, it says to be budgeted each year and all eligible participants would need to. So each public safety personnel will have to reapply each year?
Yes. So
And
it has to
why?
be.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
sorry. Go ahead. Let you finish.
Share with me why.
So it has to be budgeted funds for the program. As long as funds are budgeted, the program can go. And so an officer that lives in an apartment complex today may not live in one come October. They may decide to buy a house. Hopefully it's within Fairburn or elsewhere. But we don't want anyone to be grandfathered in. We want to make it more of a first served basis. That way it gives everyone to participate.
Will we have enough when it's a first come, first served basis? Will that provide a sort of a negative in reference to you may have more people wanting to apply that you can't serve? How would we handle that?
So based on the analysis that both our fire chief and police chief did, the number of spots that they have allocated exceeds the current number of police and fire personnel that we know to date currently live within the city of Fairburn city limits. So we do have room within those numbers to add on.
To add on more if
Yes.
some want to, if they live somewhere else and they want to take advantage of this program and move to Fairburn, you still will be able to accommodate.
Correct. So
Awesome.
right now, police is budgeting 9 slots. They don't currently have 9 officers that live within the city limits, so there is room for additional officers to decide to join, to move to Fairburn. And the same thing with fire in their 5 slots they have allocated.
Okay. I think I've notated another question. Let's see, hold on. Yes, under the application process, step 3, you've identified all qualified applications will be awarded based on priority list, property owner, renter, and renter. You got renter and renter serves as courtesy officer. Is that what you just explained?
Yes. So even if they rent in the apartment and receive some benefit for being the courtesy officer for that property, they will still be eligible.
Okay, okay. Okay, you've answered that question. I'm done. Thank you so much. I think it's a great program.
Anybody on this end? Ms. Porter Jones?
Yes, I too think it is a great program, and I am very familiar with the Atlanta Police Fire Foundation. They actually, the original program was to support, is to support housing for recruits. That they were finding that recruits could not afford to live in Atlanta as they were going through the training. And so it's great because of that success and the dollars available that they're able to expand the program to, you know, now officers who are employees. So that's my question to you. Do we have those same challenges with our recruits? And if, are there opportunities for us, maybe begin with the additional slots that you have available to offer that to recruits, and or explore the opportunity for separate program for recruits?
Absolutely. So we're always working on different incentives that we can add to the officers, different ways we can attract officers to Fairburn PD and firefighters to the FD. One of the things we are seeing right now is definitely there's a strong word of mouth, and we're using that. Fairburn PD is still a young department right now. The majority of our officers are younger, so word of mouth is one of those things we're using to our advantage, trying to encourage officers to bring in their friends, people they know, the people they can vouch for who are already in law enforcement. First of all, that's a shorter training period. When they're already post-certified, it's a much shorter training process as opposed to having to send them to the academy. When we do send an officer to the academy, there's a 2-year requirement that they have to spend with the PD after they complete the academy. So that word of mouth recruitment is definitely something we're working on. As for other benefits for the officers, we are working on, and I just implemented a program where officers will get a referral bonus. So if they refer an officer who says, this is my person, I recommend this person, they're going to get a bonus, and that's been helpful already, I think, in getting these officers to get the word out about the PD.
So are you saying we don't have a housing challenge with our recruits? Is that what you're saying?
In terms of them specifically living in Fairburn or them being able to afford housing?
Both and.
Okay, okay. I know that the officers have commented on the growing housing costs. I know some apartments I'm hearing are going for $1,800 for a single bedroom apartment, so that's certainly a challenge for them, yes. Housing costs have gotten higher. I think the rank and file have certainly felt that. So to that end, anything we can do to help them defray those higher costs, I think would be a good thing. In Fairburn in particular, I think the benefit would again just be having them in the city so they can, you know, get that benefit and reduce that higher housing costs they've had to deal with.
Okay, in the fire department, what are your challenges, if any?
We're the same with the increase in apartments that we've built around here. The complaints I've gotten from most of the guys, and I have a lot of young guys, is being able to afford the housing. So we're faced with the same challenges.
Okay. Well, so, you know, given what both of you have said, and given the, you know, the information that I've acquired and hearing what has happened in the city of Atlanta relative to that, I'm asking that we take a look at, you know, some supplemental housing for recruitment, because that's how we started all this conversation, right, was about recruitment. So recruitment is one thing, retention is another. And so balancing those two in terms of the benefits that we offer them, and given that housing prices are high and rental, you know, rents have gone up, that is an issue. So I'd like us to look at maybe with this pilot, any additional slots that you have to allocate those to the recruits, and or if you have some other strategy that you could propose to offer for them, I'd like to see that as well.
Go ahead. Wait, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Councilwoman Portis-Jones, we will certainly take that under advisement and see what we can do to focus on recruits and craft something for that as well. In the pilot program, the effort is to ramp this up in its initial iteration and then come back in the FY24 budget with additional elements to the program and a proposal for a full year of funding. In that effort, we could certainly expand. We have 2 slots available in the police department, I believe 3 slots available currently in the fire department that are not occupied by current officers, and so those can be allocated to recruits if there's a need there. I would also suggest, and I'll defer to the chiefs to back up, in addition to recruits, some of our rank and file officers face the same challenges in terms of housing cost. It's impacting all of us. And all of this is in the larger context of the employment market as it relates to public safety. And so we can certainly focus on recruits. We're happy to do that. But I think some of those same challenges exist for officers who may have been working for 5 years and are still having a tough time, finding affordable housing. And lastly, currently about 90% of our firemen live outside of the city. About 85% of our police officers live outside of the city. And so hopefully the other benefit is we begin to move those numbers in a different direction so that in the future that number is higher with officers who work for Fairburn being able to afford to live in Fairburn.
Well, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that, but I suspect that those that are married and have children, that they probably are, I won't say less interested, but the challenges for them to take advantage of it are greater. Which speaks to the opportunity for young recruits, those who are single, those who have flexibility in housing. So I'm just asking you to take a look at that. And since this is a pilot and you're budgeting, you have extras, if you could include that in the pilot as well. And then my last questions to you, to all of you, is what is your measure of success? At the end of this period, what will you say that you've seen to say that this pilot was a success?
So for me, it would be 100% of the slots filled, and there being a need from other police and fire personnel to participate in the program. To me, that would be a success because that tells us that we have firefighters and police officers that want to live in Fairburn, and that this is a program that's attractive to them to come here to work.
I would say one of the benefits is not only the being full staffed, but having a long period of time where we're full staffed. Because you can be full staffed for a week and then someone turns around and leaves and you're not full staffed anymore. My goal is to not only get us to full staffing, but to maintain that for a reasonable amount of time. You're always going to have some turnover. That's every industry and every profession. Turnover is part of the job, but being able to maintain a long period is our ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
And for the fire department, of course, 100% filling the spots. But for us, when we have major incidents in the city, having the officers or some of the firefighters to come back on call during major incidents helps out a lot because they already know the city, they know the equipment. Don't get me wrong, automatic aid is a big plus, but it's nothing like having our own guys there.
Very great, and so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And then when we began the discussions for FY 23-24 budget, I'll look to hear about those measures that you guys have described. So thank you.
Mr. Whitmore, you had another question?
Just one more. Chiefs, after listening to the various discussion that just took place, have you considered 5 and under years of service here in the city versus 5+ years and giving that a priority for the younger tenured individuals that may need this more than some of your senior tenured?
That is something we can definitely take into consideration in terms of the priority list if we were to receive more than 9 in this year, this 7 months. As of right now, the program guidelines as published are first come, first serve. And when we do put this out, we will right now reiterate that. I would think perhaps moving into the future of this program after FY24 starts in October, that could be a component of the program we build in.
I just wanted to make sure that was a consideration moving forward after the pilot program. So thank you.
I just had one question. As it relates to when we talked about recruits, looking at, we just literally graduated, 15 firefighters 6 weeks ago. My question would be, when we talk about recruit, and I guess my real question would be, being that it's not automatically assumed that you're going to pass the training. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, in both police and fire, because of the number of recruits we started off with only to graduate maybe a third of them. So my real question would be, I'm a little concerned about offering something only for that slot to be hemmed up and the person doesn't end up finishing the course, because and again, I think you encountered that last year.
Mr. Mayor, I think if we've got it, I think I control this from here. You know what, let me just look at my paper. I believe the part of the program, if I could call your attention to program eligibility, you have to be not only post-certified, complete the academy, but you have to complete your probationary period as well to be eligible.
When we call recruit, that's exactly what I was getting to. My question is, at what status is the person deemed a recruit, and when are they no longer? That's
for my purposes, they are a recruit while they are pre-academy and in the academy. The instant they graduate, they're a post-certified officer. I can't speak to fire.
We're exactly the same. And Mayor, just to talk about what you was relating to about last year, right before you all came, we were so short-staffed, we offered things to the guys for retaining them. And that's why that happened. But it's a totally different ball game now. The recruits that just graduated, they're excited about being here. They actually want to live in Fairburn. Some of them, it was their first time in the city.
Wow.
So,
Well, and I think, Mayor, what I would add to that is, I want to make sure we're all using the same definition to your question about what recruit means. Because typically, once those firefighters or police officers graduate from the academy, they're no longer recruits. They have not yet completed the 6-month probationary period.
Yeah.
Now, in the instance of the firefighters, and thank you for bringing that up, we just added 15 chiefs. Did I get that number right? I would tell you that almost to a person, they are young. I don't know if they're all single. They certainly look single. Very young men.
How do you look single?
How do you look single? And so,
Expound upon that in your report.
I hadn't checked with everybody's personal life. And then I think we have a number of young officers that would be similarly positioned in the police department, recent graduates from the academy. And so I think there's application there for younger officers, to your point, Councilwoman Portis-Jones, who may not have planted deep roots somewhere else. I think we have a number of officers that would fit that description.
Well, the mayor brings up a valid question, so I ask that you just reach out to the foundation, Atlanta Police Foundation, and help us to understand their definition of that and, you know, how they use the term. And I don't know if they use recruit or not. I mean, that's my understanding of it. All I know is that they are persons who are new to the city, new to the job, and, you know, housing is provided while they are protecting the communities for which they live. So, so if we can get some clarity on that to address the mayor's concern, I'd appreciate that as well.
Certainly.
And my last comment about that is that I don't want to and this is just my personal perspective, I don't want to disregard some of our senior members with tenure and the reason why things happen in life, divorces, deaths, whatever like that. And so we can't just assume that because a situation is beautiful today, that tomorrow holds a different ball game. And so what I don't want to do is have it where, and I'm just going to say it as candid as I can, where senior level firemen or police officers are almost too embarrassed to ask for housing because they're scared everybody's going to ask what happened. And so I just want to make sure that's understood, that things happen in life. And so I just want to make that real clear. This program is from the top to the bottom.
And Mayor, as we brainstormed about putting together this pilot program, one of the first considerations was whether or not we should just open it up to police officers and firefighters, starting at our lower ranking file officers. But due to the size of both our police and fire departments, we thought it would be best to open up departmental wide. Unlike other jurisdictions that may have it based on rank, we wanted to make sure this is an opportunity that everyone could take advantage of.
Gotcha. Exactly.
Mayor,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I may, so what you just commented on brought up another question that I had that I noted in the guidelines, and that is, unless I misread it, that it is incumbent upon the employee who is interested in this program to communicate with their department head regarding this particular issue. I kind of question that and wonder if that conversation really should be with HR rather than with the department heads. I mean, I think that, you know, you, the department, really shouldn't be in the middle of that, because it is a benefit that's being offered, and, you know, the oversight and the management of it, I would suggest would be better placed in HR. But I just ask you to just take a look at that to see if that might be a better position.
And Ms. Jones, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with that, and the reason why is because as a person that actually manages a department at in Fulton County, most of the issues, a lot of the issues from personal, and I'm referring to personal issues, a lot of times they will actually come to me, and as a department head in this case, and I'll actually give them the guidance of here's what you probably want to consider versus an avenue that they thought. Again, I'm not disagreeing that HR ultimately will be brought in, but I think a lot of times in situations come up where people don't necessarily want their personal life or personal issues actually documented in the HR department. I don't know other way to put it. I'm just telling you what I know, where I've had people that work for me that had situations come up, and it was the employee and myself that worked it out so that it would not become basically part of their HR record and end up being a detriment in years to come. I'm just telling you how, for me, how it's worked out. So again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just telling you how it is recently, a very recent, I'm just telling you, when I say recent, I'm talking about very recent situation that I've dealt with a person that works for me. And it was because of that scenario that they were concerned about actually being destroyed in the workplace on paper. So just food for thought.
So I can tell you that this was a joint effort, and we brought HR to the table. We've just asked that both the deputy chiefs and fire and police are the main points of contact for the forms as far as confirming eligibility in the program. Once an applicant is accepted, that transitions over to HR because they'll be the one responsible for paying that benefit out each month. And so we just want to make sure that anyone that participates, they inform the city should their residency change, because if it's outside the city limits, they no longer are eligible for the benefit, which could be a slot for someone else. And if they move within the city of Fairburn, we want to make sure we have their residency updated accordingly.
Well, that clarifies, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And just as a point of clarity, so we'd understand what I refer to, there are scenarios where, and I'm just going to give it to you as the best way I can. There are scenarios where now, if you're applying for management I'm talking about both private sector and in some cases in the government, they'll ask you for your credit score. That's real. If certain things have happened in your livelihood, it's automatically assumed that your credit score would take a hit. And I had to actually advise an employee, are you sure you want to take this to HR? Because if you ever decide to expire to management, it's going to become a hindrance. And again, like I said, I told the employee, that's your total decision. I have to advise you as a person that's hired managers, this is going to be looked at probably very derogatory. And so again, Ms. Jones, I'm just trying to make sure you understand, that's the detriment of taking it straight to HR opposed to taking it through the department head. So.
All I would add to that, Mayor, and that's a very good point, is that the application process as designed in this pilot does not compel any employee to reveal any personal information. They're not questioned as to why they need a housing incentive. And so, to your point, we try to keep this as straightforward as we can so that it is not a barrier to folks to get the incentive. And that's why we title this, it's an incentive. And so you may not have a reason. Maybe you didn't have a life event. You just would like to take advantage of the incentive.
Any other questions about council? I'm sorry. Anyone else? If not, we can go to the next item. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item is Fire Station 23 design presentation and update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So I'm here with some good news. We are making progress in the design of Fire Station 23, and we wanted to come and share it with you all what is going on. We know that due to the long history with the development of this fire station, that communication is important. And even myself, Chief, and the City Administrator have met with the Bedford School a couple of months ago, and we'll be meeting with them again as we continue in the progress of the design. Also with the fact that Council was so gracious to award the contract of the design to Piper O'Brien and her POH. So we wanted to update you on what we've done so far and where we're at so far. And Piper O'Brien are here tonight. They're here to be able to answer your technical questions and to give you an overview of what we have. I will say that this is, what you'll see represents the schematic design, which we call the early phase of design. We are in the process of the bulk of the design development phase. As we progress farther, we'll come back once we have a much more substantial design to show you where we're at. We are still tracking the timeline to be finished with design this year and to hopefully let this for construction this calendar year. All right. Actually, I'm going to invite the guys to come up so they can talk about the wonderful work they've done.
Good evening, and thanks for having us today.
Good evening.
I'm Jeff Lohman with Piper O'Brien Her. I'm one of the principals. I brought with me Hamilton Holmes and Ian Halsey. They will serve as my backup singers tonight.
Okay.
We just want to share with you our progress, as Dana said, where we started and where we are. So we've had numerous meetings with Chief Robinson and Dana to establish the goals for the fire station, the program, what needs to be in the building. What we've done is we created a program, created a floor plan. The building is approximately just a little bit over 10,000 square feet. As you can see here on the site plan, you have about 4 acres of land. Because of the size of the building and the circulation around the building, we're really only utilizing about 2 acres of the site. So there's leftover parcel for whatever your future needs may be. The building's situated such that the trucks can come in off of Milam Road and circulate around and go into the bays. And then for efficiency's sake, it's a pull-through, what they call a pull-through fire station. Therefore, response time is less than some of your other types of fire stations. What you see here is our floor plan. Basically, it's color-coded as far as the use of the particular portions of the building. In the purple here are the 3 bays, so they have enough room for current equipment and maybe even future equipment. There's also, to the left here, the associated gear lockers and things that are required to kind of utilize the fire or the engine bays. Everything to the right of there is the bunks. There's currently 10 bunks. There's a community room. There's the battalion offices. There's the day room, the dining room, and showers and lockers and those types of things. So that's essentially what this fire station is comprised of. The last piece here are basically some renderings what the fire station would look like from the road, basically. We have it's more of a contemporary style. We've got some metal panels. We've got your red, what's called the bifold doors. Those are the quick action opening doors for the front of the station. We have some brick and other masonry type materials. And of course, the American flag. And there's just several different views of it from different perspectives. And that in a net, so we are currently, this is our schematic design phase, so we've established the size and footprint of the building, what the building can look like. What we're in now is our design development phase, so we're just refining our drawings. We're getting the engineers involved to start looking at the mechanical, the electrical systems, and then we'll continue to have meetings throughout this process with the chief and Dana to really refine all that. And that's basically it. That's where we are at this point.
Members of council, does anyone have a question about this item? Let's start with this side first. Okay, Mr. Heath, and then Mr. Whitmore.
Mayor, it was my understanding that we were actually going to have an area that a police officer could go out and do a report or whatever like that. Is that figured into this?
So on the floor plan, if you look at the floor plan drawing that you have, at the front of the building, there is office space that is across from the conference room. So that office space in the lobby is where, if the police officer so choose, they can use that space to fill out reports, do office work. It'll be for them to be able to access that, but it's still separate from the rest of the station, so they can access that without going into the station.
So that's the community room?
No, it's across from the community room. If you're looking at your floor plan, there's two small rooms across from that. One is a bathroom. The other room right in front is the office space.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Any other members of council got a question about this? Mr. Whitmore?
Yes. How you doing, gentlemen? My question is 21st century buildings, and with us erecting something from the ground up, have you also thought about green energy for this particular building as well?
I thought about you, Councilman Whitmore. Actually, yes. If you look at one of the perspectives of the front of the building has one of the things it does have is a charging station right there in the front for some vehicles or somebody that may have an electric vehicle that we may know. But that is incorporated in the design right now. We are working on some of the other pieces about green energy and sustainability. I will tell you that, before I hand it off to Jeff, that some of the elements of their design and current standards are green and sustainable building is interwoven into the standards now. It is not what it was, say, in 2003, where it was a new initiative. Now it's kind of woven into the base of how we build buildings.
Well, it's great to see that you do have a charging station, and I'm hoping that that's not a long tickler charging station, but it is a fast charger. That's great. But I'm looking at the slope of the roof as well, and again, for me not having a compass in front of me, whether or not that roof is facing the south, whereas you can actually have panels that will help to reduce the energy costs of the firehouse. And of course, whenever the sun is not up, then you go back on, hopefully, the city of Fairburn's electricity.
So we're still looking at the power for this. We do know that this area is actually Fayette Coweta, not the city of Fairburn. Utilities Department has confirmed that. But we're still looking at the aspect of that roof and the solar panels, because we want to make sure, as Jeff mentioned with the engineers, that the roof can withhold that weight, because all of this fire station is not the typical brick and mortar. There are steel components to it as well. So we're still evaluating that.
So, my counter, okay, because of the available land, you can actually not have it on the roof and actually have a structure or framing that you can still apply solar panels to, especially with the way the panels are nowadays, that will also, especially if we're not getting power from the city of Fairburn, I don't want all that money to be going out to another electric company.
Yep, we will definitely dive into that. What I would caution about putting other structures on the property is that because of how the deed read, we have to be careful about what structures we put there, because it was very particular. The deed was for the purpose of the fire station and the office space if we desired for police, and it strictly prohibited storage buildings and other structures that were not pertinent. But we will look at that to make sure we get something figured out for you.
Follow up? I'm not talking about really a structure. I'm talking about framing that, you know, I mean, I have framing. Come out to my house. Let me show you. All right? So it's not a structure itself, but it's a way that for buildings that may not be able to sustain the weight on a roof, you can actually put ground mounts and then apply the solar energy panels. So just a consideration, conversation. This is, they're coming up with the total design and everything else. So this is our opportunity to just kind of look at everything, especially with the wave of the future being solar energy and EVs.
Also, as we finish the schematic design development, we'll be updating the signage that is out there now with the current and what will be the design of the building. I know there's a sign out there right now from the previous iteration. So as we finalize this design, we will place that signage with the actual final design of this building.
I do have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Heath.
What's the price?
Oh,
sorry, that was a inside conversation with city administrator. Right now, the estimated price that we're holding, including contingency and escalation, was $4.5 million, around roughly, based on this schematic design. I will say that that price will be more refined as we refine the design and consider all the elements as Councilman Whitmore brought up and everything else.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think he, as the finance director, wanted to comment on that.
Good evening.
good evening.
So we do have funding from the bond that was put out years ago. Our plan right now is to fund between that bond and also the American Rescue Plan. So between both of those, we anticipate having enough funding with the estimate that we have right now. As we know, construction costs are fluid, so that's part of the urgency to get this project moving. The longer we wait, the higher chance we have of the price going up. So as of today, the estimate, working with Mr. Smith, that we come up with is $4.5 million. Right. As of today, we are in good shape.
Okay, great.
Sure.
So, just an additional, you may recall that we went over an American Rescue Plan Act funding last year, and we presented a plan for how we would allocate that funding. It had about $3.1 million set aside for city facilities. So we did that with the anticipation that the numbers for building the fire station that were generated years ago, we knew would not be the current number. And so fortunately, between that and the bond funding that we already have, we are well positioned to meet the $4.5 million, and I'm hoping that these wonderful gentlemen and Mr. Smith are going to bring that number down a little bit with value engineering, so that the final number comes in a little lower, no pressure.
We're hoping.
But if it is $4.5 million, we would be sufficiently funded to build this fire station.
I just didn't want to have to go through that process of doing bonds and stuff like that, because that was costly for the city and previously what we've done. With the college campus, for example, and then there were shortfalls on that, so we had to go back in and do some more. So as long as we got the money, that's great. Thank you.
You're good to go.
Okay. I feel a lot better.
Is there any other questions by members of council regarding this item? Okay, thank you so much.
Good.
Members of council, I guess in this case we can adjourn until we'll start at 7 o'clock sharply.
Sounds good.
Hey, sir.
Sir, how you doing? Good. Man, I lose my phone.